You ever walk into a room knowing someone's about to try and ruin your life? And all you can do is sit there and smile like it doesn't tear something out of you every time? That was me. Sitting in a courtroom that smelled like paper and stale air, watching my ex-husband pretend he had the moral high ground. Jason, the man who once promised to love me forever, now looking smug in a cheap suit, acting like he hadn't emotionally checked out of our marriage years ago. But I had a plan. A good one, I thought. As I walked in, hand resting carefully on my stomach, I could feel every pair of eyes turn to me. The whisper of fabric, the rustle of chairs, people noticed. They always notice a pregnant woman. Vulnerable. Alone. I wore a loose ivory dress, something soft that made me look delicate. Like someone who needed help. Like someone abandoned. Because that's what I was, wasn't I? Abandoned. Jason left the moment things got real. He always did. I sat down slowly, brushing my hair behind my ear like I hadn't rehearsed that exact move in the mirror. I even let out a sigh. The kind that says I'm tired, Your Honor. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong, all alone. Theatrics? Maybe. But you don't get anything in this world unless you make people feel something. Jason just stared at me. Cold. Like he hadn't once kissed the top of my head and called me his whole world. The hearing began. My new lawyer, Tim or Tom. I honestly forgot, stood up and started his little speech. He was nervous. I could hear it in his voice. Probably his first big case, poor guy. But he hit all the right notes. Emotional distress, unemployment, an impending baby. The courtroom was quiet. I could practically feel the judge leaning in. And then Jason's lawyer stood up. Ethan. I hated how calm he always was. Like nothing ever touched him. His tone wasn't loud, just surgical. Cold enough to cut without raising his voice. Your Honor, he said, folding his hands like a priest. While we certainly sympathize with Miss Parker's situation, we must clarify a few things before proceeding. First and foremost, who is the father of this child? My heart skipped. Wait. No. He wasn't supposed to ask that. Not out loud. Not like that. My lawyer stammered. My client believes it is the petitioner's. Believes? That idiot actually said believes? I felt the room tilt slightly. Jason's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Ethan didn't even blink. She believes, he said softly. So there's no proof? I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I wasn't ready for this part. I hadn't thought they'd go there. Not so soon. I assumed, I said, barely louder than a whisper. The judge narrowed his eyes. You assumed? It was unraveling. Fast. They brought out photos, Jason with them in his smug little folder. Me. On vacation. With Kyle. Holding hands. Kissing. 2 months after Jason and I separated. I felt the heat rush to my face. Then came the medical records. I hadn't even known they had those. Her first confirmed pregnancy test, Ethan said, was taken well after she and my client last had contact. That was it. The moment everything collapsed. The judge's face turned to stone. Miss Parker, this court does not take kindly to deception. His voice faded. All I could hear was my own heartbeat in my ears. My throat closed. No alimony. No support. The prenup stood. Every carefully laid plan burned to ash. I tried. I really did. But, Your Honor, I gasped. This isn't fair. I'm about to have a baby, and he just gets to walk away? Nothing. No flicker of sympathy. No lifeline. Jason leaned forward, voice low and sharp. You really want to go on record accusing me of being the father? Because we can get a court-ordered test. Right now. I stared at him, shaking. He knew. He'd known the whole time. I looked at the judge, then at the clerk. Silence. No one said a word. They didn't have to. It was over. But I couldn't let it in like that. Not in front of him. Not like this. I followed him into the hallway after. My heels slammed the floor like gunshots. You're a monster, I hissed, my voice shaking. You let me sit there and be humiliated. Jason turned slowly, looking me over like I was something on the bottom of his shoe. I'm sorry, Jessica. Which part humiliated you? The part where you lied, or the part where I proved it? I wanted to scream. To hit him. To do something. But then I saw her, his mother. The woman who once told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. Are you seriously okay with this? I asked her, my voice breaking. With what he did to me. She crossed her arms. I'm not okay with what you did to him. That hurt. More than I wanted it to. And then the worst sound of all. 2 officers behind me. Miss Parker, One said, voice firm. Come with us, please. What? Why? The judge has recommended an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud. My blood turned cold. No, wait. I didn't. But they were already walking me back in. I caught one last glimpse of Jason as the courtroom doors closed behind me. He didn't even look back. You ever feel the ground open beneath your feet, and you're just falling, fast, breathless, with no idea when you'll hit bottom? That was me, walking back into the courtroom, flanked by two officers who had the kind of practiced politeness that said, don't make this harder than it already is. My mouth was dry. My heels clicked too loud. I could still feel Jason's smirk burning into my back like a spotlight. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. The hearing had ended. The humiliation should have been over. But of course, Jason couldn't just let it go. He had to twist the knife. The judge had ordered a formal inquiry. Fraud, deception, perjury. Big words with sharp edges. I hadn't even realized that by playing the poor abandoned mother card, I might have crossed legal lines. I just wanted what I deserved. What I was owed after everything Jason had put me through. But suddenly I was being treated like a criminal. They sat me in a smaller side room, a dull little chamber with beige walls and buzzing lights. One of the officers asked me if I needed water. I said no. My hands were shaking too much to hold a cup anyway. A woman in a gray suit came in with a clipboard. Court investigator. She introduced herself with a soft smile I didn't trust for a second. Miss Parker, she said. We just need to clarify a few inconsistencies in your case file. Inconsistencies. That's what they were calling it now. She started asking questions. About timelines. About names. About him, Kyle. The man in the photos. The one who was supposed to be a fling. A band-aid after Jason. He was never meant to become part of a courtroom scandal. And yet, here we were. When did your relationship with Mr. Taylor begin? She asked. I don't know exactly, I muttered. A couple of months after Jason and I split. She tilted her head. And your pregnancy was confirmed when? I hesitated. I don't know the exact date. She looked down at the medical file. It says here, 5 months ago. I said nothing. She scribbled something down. The silence between her words was louder than anything. Miss Parker, she said, finally looking up. Were you aware that making knowingly false claims to the court, especially regarding financial need and paternity, can be considered perjury? My mouth went cold. I didn't lie, I said. Weakly. You didn't tell the truth either. She stood, and that was it. No yelling. No handcuffs. Just a lingering threat in the air, like smoke after a fire. I was free to go. For now. I walked out into the hallway, heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to escape. Jason was gone. Of course he was. He always vanished when the real cleanup began. But his lawyer was still there. Ethan. Leaning against the wall, checking his phone like he hadn't just demolished my life an hour ago. He glanced up when he saw me, offered a polite nod. Miss Parker. I didn't respond. I just stared at him. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something. Instead, I turned and walked toward the elevators like I still had some dignity left to protect. By the time I got home, Kyle was sitting on the couch, arms crossed. That same expression he always had when he was trying not to accuse me of something. He'd seen the photos, obviously, or someone had told him. We sat in silence for a long time. Then, finally, he said, Is it mine? I didn't answer right away. What could I say? I had told him it was. He bought diapers, painted a nursery. But now, he looked at me like I was a stranger. I thought it was, I whispered. He just stood up, walked into the bedroom, came out with his duffel bag. And that was it. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just the quiet sound of someone leaving who should have been there. The next few days blurred. I got a letter from the court. Official. Cold. The investigation was ongoing. They were reviewing financial records, communication logs, bank statements. Everything. They were looking for proof that I'd knowingly lied to secure money. Which, I guess, I had. And Jason? He was out there somewhere, free. Probably celebrating. Probably telling people how he'd seen it coming. How he'd been 3 steps ahead. I used to love that about him. How strategic he was. It's why I fell for him. He always had a plan. Always knew what the next move should be. I should have remembered that before I walked into court with a belly and a story and nothing to back it up. He didn't need to destroy me. He just let me do it myself. I should have kept walking. When I stormed out of that courtroom, red-faced and shaking, I should have just kept going. But no, there he was. Jason, acting like he'd just won some game, like my whole life wasn't lying in pieces behind him. You're a monster, I snapped, my voice trembling. You let me sit there and be humiliated. He turned. Calm. Always calm. Like nothing ever touched him. I'm sorry, Jessica, he said, dragging my name like a dull blade. Which part humiliated you? The part where you tried to scam the court? Or the part where you realized I was 3 steps ahead? That smug little smile. I wanted to slap it off his face. You set me up, I hissed. He laughed. Actually laughed. No, sweetheart. You set yourself up. I just let you walk into it. That was the thing about Jason. He never needed to be cruel. He let the facts do it for him. He was always that way. Cold. Precise. Like a surgeon, except he liked leaving the wound open. And then he twisted the knife again, bringing her into it. His mother. I turned to her, hoping maybe, just maybe, someone would remember I was human. Are you seriously okay with this? I asked, eyes stinging. With what he did to me. She hesitated, crossed her arms. Her voice was low, flat. I'm not okay with what you did to him. You had us all fooled once. Never again. My throat closed. I felt heat rush up behind my eyes. I tried to swallow it. Tried to stay composed. But something cracked. Something small, but sharp. I hope you rot. I snapped, stepping forward. I hope you. Miss Parker. A voice behind me. Cold. Official. I froze. 2 court officers were standing just inside the hallway doors. Neutral expressions. Hands folded in front of them. Come with us, please. My heart stuttered. What? Why? The judge has recommended an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud, one of them said. You'll need to answer some questions. No, wait. That's not, I didn't. But it didn't matter. They were already guiding me back toward the courtroom. Not touching me, not yet. But the implication was clear. Everyone watched. I could feel their eyes on me as I disappeared behind those doors again. Jason didn't say a word. And just like that, I was back in hell. Weeks passed. And the silence was the worst part. Not the court notices. Not the letters warning of pending investigations. Not the dry legal language I could barely understand. The silence. The people who stopped texting. The way my phone barely rang anymore. The friends who couldn't get involved. My lawyer, well, former lawyer, dropped me the day after the hearing. Said something about irreconcilable trust issues. Which was code for, you lied to me, and I don't want to go down with you. Kyle was gone, too. After the hearing, he barely spoke to me. Said he needed space. A few days later, I came home to find his things gone and a note on the counter. I don't know who you are anymore. I almost laughed. Neither did I. The worst part? He started doing the math. Started wondering if he was the father at all. The photos in court, the medical records, it planted a seed. And once that seed grew, there was no stopping it. No nursery. No baby shower. No promises. Just silence. The court hit me with a fine. For wasting judicial resources. I didn't even have the energy to contest it. My attempt to file for government aid? Denied. Because guess what? They asked for paternity documentation, too. I thought about calling Jason. I don't know why. Maybe for closure. Maybe just to hear a familiar voice. But then I stopped myself. He didn't owe me anything. Not anymore. And honestly, maybe he never did. A few months after the trial, I got a text from an unknown number. Jessica, I hope you're happy. It had to be him. Who else would bother? I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering. Then I typed. I'm not. But I didn't send it. Instead, I deleted the message. Sat with the emptiness of it. Then, on some strange impulse, I retyped something else. I am. Thanks for asking. And I hit send. 30 seconds later, I blocked the number. Just like that. He was done with me. And maybe I was finally done with him, too. All those years I spent trying to control, to manipulate, to survive, only to end up alone. No money, no man, no dignity. Just me and the sound of my own voice in an empty apartment. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't lie my way out of it. I didn't cry until I got home. Not in the hallway when Jason smirked. Not when his mother turned on me like I was some stranger off the street. Not even when those officers escorted me back into that cursed courtroom like I was a case file in heels. But when the door to my apartment clicked shut behind me and I was finally alone, the silence shattered something inside me. I slid down to the floor, my back against the door, and let it happen. Ugly, loud, and uncontrollable. The kind of crying that steals the air from your lungs. The kind that makes you realize you're not grieving a man or a marriage, but the version of yourself you can never go back to. I wasn't mourning Jason. I was mourning the illusion that I still had control. The court was moving forward with their inquiry. I got the notice in the mail 2 days later. The envelope looked like every other boring government letter, beige, stiff, and devastating. The words blurred as I read them. Intent to investigate, potential perjury, fraudulent financial statements. I felt sick, not just from fear, but from shame. Because here's the thing, they weren't wrong. I did lie, not just to the court, or to my lawyer, or even to Jason. I lied to myself. I built this story in my head, that I was owed something, that I could game the system, that pregnancy meant power. I thought I was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. But I wasn't the queen. I was the pawn, the expendable one, the one everyone saw through before I even made my first move. Jason never had to destroy me. He just watched. Weeks passed. I kept waiting for something. A phone call, a letter, a miracle. But life doesn't wait for you to pull yourself together. I applied for financial assistance. Denied. Again. Turns out they don't give much sympathy when you're under court review for fraud. I tried calling a few friends, old ones, from before Jason, before the spiral. Most didn't answer. The ones who did were polite but distant. Nobody likes to be near a sinking ship. My mother stopped answering too. She used to defend me. Used to say, "Jessica's just misunderstood." Now, she didn't even return my texts. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she finally saw me the way everyone else did. The baby came early. Not by much, just a few weeks. I was alone in the hospital. No one waiting in the hallway. No one holding my hand. Just a nurse who smiled too much and a doctor who didn't ask many questions. And when I held her for the first time, this tiny thing wrapped in hospital linen, blinking up at me with wide, confused eyes, I felt something twist in my chest. Not guilt. Not fear. Responsibility. The kind I'd been dodging for years. For the first time, I didn't feel like scheming. I didn't care about Jason or courts or what the world thought of me. I just looked at her and whispered, "I'm sorry." Not because I had ruined things with Jason, but because I had nearly ruined everything for her. She deserved better. I didn't know if I could be that, but I knew I had to try. A few months later, I got another message from an unknown number. "Heard you had the baby. Hope she's healthy." Jason. Had to be. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about ignoring it. Thought about lashing back. Instead, I typed slowly. "She is. And she's mine." I didn't mean biologically. I meant everything. She's what I have. What I need to fight for. No lies. No plans. Just honesty, even if it's raw and messy. He never responded. I didn't expect him to. Some things don't need a reply. People talk about hitting rock bottom like it's a bad thing. But honestly, there's something peaceful about it. You stop clawing at walls that were never going to hold you. You stop pretending you're something you're not. You just exist. And from there, maybe, you start over. That's what I'm doing. Starting over. With less than nothing. No husband, no friends, no money, no schemes. Just a daughter who didn't ask for any of this. And a woman trying to figure out how to become someone she won't have to lie about later. I don't know how it'll go. But I know this. When you lose everything you built on lies, what you're left with is real. And finally, painfully, that's enough.